The mat trembled beneath the weight of the crowd's stunned silence as the janitor, gray-haired, unassuming, her worn uniform stained with the sweat of 1,000 unnoticed nights, stood over the crumpled form of the arrogant champion. His black gi, once a symbol of untouchable dominance, lay twisted around him, his cocky grin replaced by a grimace of disbelief. No one had seen it coming, not the spectators, not the trainers, not even the young prodigy himself. Marcus, the Titan, Rivera, she had destroyed him. A woman they'd dismissed as invisible, her hands moving with a precision that whispered of secrets buried deep in a past no one bothered to ask about. The dojo's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across her weathered face, her brown eyes glinting with a fire that had long been smothered. This was no fluke. This was a reckoning, a moment that would ripple through the community like a shockwave, forcing everyone to question what they thought they knew. The scene replayed in their minds like a cinematic slow motion reel, each frame etched with tension. Earlier that evening, the air had buzzed with anticipation as Marcus strutted onto the mat, his 28-year-old frame a sculpture of muscle and confidence. His black belt, adorned with patches from international tournaments, gleamed under the lights, a testament to his rise from a scrappy kid in the Bronx to a local legend. His every move was a performance, flashing that signature smirk, pointing at the crowd, soaking in their cheers. He was the golden boy, a man who'd turned raw talent into a brand, dismissing opponents with a flick of his wrist and a taunting laugh. But tonight his opponent was an enigma, a figure from the dojo's periphery who'd never been considered a threat. Elena Torres, the janitor, had been mopping the sidelines, her head bowed, her presence so routine it blended into the scuffed walls and faded posters. Her grey, streaked ponytail swayed with each methodical swipe of her mop, her uniform a drab grey that mirrored her invisibility. No one knew her story and no one cared to ask, until that fateful challenge. Today Elena was a ghost in the dojo, a woman in her late 50s whose hands bore the scars of decades spent scrubbing floors and hauling trash. The students barely acknowledged her, tossing their sweat-soaked jizz into bins she'd quietly empty, their laughter and bravado washing over her like a tide she'd learned to ignore. She moved with a quiet dignity, her sharp brown eyes often fixed on the mats, as if seeing something the others couldn't. Rumors drifted like smoke. Some said she'd been a single mother, others that she'd fled a violent past or lost everything in a fire that razed her old life. But these were idle whispers, dismissed as quickly as they formed. To the dojo's elite, she was just the janitor, a relic of the building's underbelly, unworthy of a second glance. Marcus, with his towering ego, embodied this hierarchy most vividly. Weeks earlier, he'd tossed a half-empty water bottle at her feet during a break, the liquid splashing her worn sneakers as he chuckled, calling it a tip for her hard work. She'd picked it up without a word, her expression a mask, but the seed of tension had taken root, unseen by all. The night of the match began like any other. Marcus was set to face a mid-tier opponent, a warm-up before his next big tournament in Miami. The dojo was a cauldron of energy, packed with spectators, the air thick with the tang of sweat and the hum of excitement. Elena worked her usual rounds, her mop gliding across the mats as the crowd filtered in, her movements steady despite the chaos around her. The match started predictably. Marcus dominated his opponent with a flurry of submissions, his confidence swelling with each tap out. But then, a drunken spectator, emboldened by a rowdy group of friends, staggered to his feet, slurring a challenge.
"Prove you're the best Titan! Take on someone real!"
Laughter erupted, and in a moment of reckless pride, Marcus scanned the room, his eyes landing on Elena. How about her? He sneered, jabbing a mocking finger in her direction. Let's see if the old lady can keep up. The crowd roared with jeers, the idea absurd, a perfect punchline. Elena froze, her mop handle gripped tight, her gaze locking with his. For a fleeting second, something flickered in her eyes, anger, resolve, or perhaps a memory long buried. But she nodded, setting the mop aside with a deliberate clatter. The crowd's laughter turned to confusion as Elena stepped onto the mat, shedding her janitor's apron to reveal a worn gi underneath. Its fabric faded, but its black belt a stark contrast against her frame. Whispers spread like wildfire. Had she trained? Was this a prank? Marcus, still grinning, waved her forward, ready to humiliate her in seconds. The referee, sensing a spectacle but uneasy, allowed it, his whistle cutting through the din. The match began and the room held its breath. What followed was a blur of motion, a dance of violence and grace. Elena moved like a storm unleashed, her hands striking with surgical precision, her legs sweeping Marcus off balance before he could react. He lunged, overconfident, only to find himself pinned, her arm locked around his neck in a chokehold that left him gasping. The crowd gasped as he struggled, his face reddening, then tapped out in under a minute. Silence fell, then exploded into a chaotic mix of cheers and disbelief as Marcus lay there defeated, the weight of his arrogance crashing down. But for Elena, this was more than a victory. It was a release, a crack in the dam of a life suppressed. In the days that followed, the story unraveled like a thread pulled from an old tapestry. Decades ago, Elena had been a martial arts prodigy, trained by a reclusive master in the rugged mountains of Colombia. Her childhood had been one of discipline, her days filled with grueling drills under the watchful eye of a man who saw her potential when no one else did. She'd competed in underground circuits, her name, then Elena Vargas, whispered in awe across South America, her skills a blend of jiu-jitsu and an ancient Colombian fighting style. She'd been unstoppable until a brutal knee injury during a championship match, followed by the devastating loss of her family in a cartel-related attack, forced her into hiding. Fleeing to the United States, she'd buried her past, taking the janitor job not out of necessity, but to stay close to the mats, to keep her skills alive in secret. The black belt she wore was real, earned through blood and sacrifice, its faded color a testament to a life erased by circumstance. The twist came weeks later, when Marcus, humbled and seeking redemption, approached her with a trembling voice. He'd uncovered her past through old tournament records, his curiosity turning to awe as he pieced together the legend she'd become. He begged her to train him, to teach him the discipline he'd lacked, his arrogance replaced by a raw desire to learn. Elena hesitated, her trust shattered by years of invisibility, her heart heavy with memories of betrayal. But something in his earnest eyes, those same eyes that had once mocked her, broke through her defenses. She agreed, and what followed was a grueling mentorship that tested them both. They trained in the early mornings, the dojo empty save for the echo of their movements, Elena pushing Marcus beyond his limits with drills that echoed her own brutal past. He stumbled, fell, and rose again, shedding his arrogance with each sweat-drenched session, while Elena rediscovered her purpose, her strength reignited by his determination. The tension peaked months later as they prepared for a regional tournament, their partnership a quiet revolution in the dojo. Marcus, now leaner and more focused, trained with a reverence that silenced his former critics, while Elena's presence commanded respect, her every move a lesson in resilience. The night of the tournament arrived, the arena buzzing with a larger crowd than ever, the stakes higher than Marcus's solo days. They entered as a team, mentor and student, facing a formidable opponent duo. The match was a spectacle, a ballet of strategy and power. Elena's experience guided Marcus's youthful energy, their movements synchronized in a way that left the crowd spellbound. In the final moments, Marcus executed a submission she'd taught him, tapping out their opponent as Elena stood watch, her pride a quiet storm. They won, their victory a silent tribute to her resilience and his growth, the trophy a symbol of their shared redemption. On that final night under the dojo's lights, Elena stood tall, her gi pristine, her eyes gleaming with pride as Marcus accepted the championship trophy. The crowd roared, no longer seeing the janitor but a warrior reborn, her gray hair a crown of experience. Marcus knelt before her, bowing in gratitude, a gesture that silenced the room and brought tears to the eyes of those who'd once mocked her. It was a moment of redemption, of justice served not with vengeance but with transformation. Elena had turned her pain into power, her invisibility into inspiration, proving that age and circumstance are no match for the fire within. The dojo, once a place of her exile, became her stage, and the story of the janitor who taught a champion spread like wildfire, a tale of triumph that would endure. Outros. What did you think of Elena's incredible journey? Could you have guessed her hidden strength, or were you as shocked as Marcus? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did this story inspire you to chase your own redemption? If you loved this cinematic tale, hit that like button, share it with a friend who needs a boost, and subscribe for more stories of triumph and justice. What other untold heroes should we uncover next? Let us know below. We're listening. Sure.